morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to Chapter 15. We're talking about the history of the life on Earth. Remember, the history of the life of the planet is broken up into four unequal sections: the Precambrian, the Paleozoic, the Mesozoic, and the Cenozoic. The Precambrian, the age of the planet is 4.6 billion years. The Precambrian is about the first 4 billion of those 4.6 billion. We move on to the Paleozoic. The Paleozoic began about 500-ish million years ago, 550-ish million years ago. And it wasn't until about 500 million years ago that life finally came out on land. So, what was on land before that? And the answer was nothing. There was just dirt and rocks and sand on land. There was no plants because plants didn't come out until 500 million years ago. And if there's no plants on land, there's no reason for animals to come out. Why would they come out on land if there's nothing to eat? If there's nothing to eat, there's nothing going to keep them there. They might come out for a little bit to escape a predator, but then they'll go right back in again because they have to have food. And food is where there are plants. And if there are no plants on land, there's not going to be any animals on land. About 360 million years ago, we get our first amphibians. Think about this. This is the pinnacle of evolution. A frog. A frog is as complicated as it gets. I have in my mind, I see a throne. And sitting on that throne is a frog with a crown and a scepter. And a big, red cape, right? Because he is the king of Earth. He is as complicated as it gets, a frog. Remember, 360 million years ago, we're talking, this is give or take about 200 million years after the beginning of this Paleozoic. 200 million. That is an incredible amount of time, an inconceivable amount of time for an organism that only lives for about a century or so. How long were frogs the pinnacle of evolution? For 70 million years. You know what was happening on the planet 70 million years ago? There were dinosaurs. And again, we're still not talking about dinosaurs. There are no dinosaurs in the Paleozoic. None. Dinosaurs! There's no dinosaurs yet. When are we going to talk about dinosaurs? In a little bit, hold your horses. For 70 million years, amphibians are the pinnacle of evolution until we get these things called reptiles. About 290 million years ago, we get the first reptiles. About 40 million years after that, the Permian Extinction ends the Paleozoic. And our first mammal-like reptiles show up around this 250 million year ago mark. They are not mammals. They are mammal-like reptiles. They're still reptiles. The Permian Extinction was huge. Again, we're talking about 90+% of all the species on the planet were wiped out with the Permian Extinction. All right, so again, this graphic that we see here, this bottom section, this is the Precambrian. This purple area, then, this is the Paleozoic era. The Precambrian, the next important one is the Carboniferous, and then the last is the Permian Extinction. And so what do we move to after the Permian Extinction? What do we move to next? We move on to the Mesozoic. The Mesozoic begins about 250 million years ago. At about 210 million years ago, we finally get dinosaurs. We get our first dinosaurs, our first very simple mammals, and we get our first, these things that we call birds. We'll talk about birds in a little bit. Birds are really special. Dinosaurs walked the Earth for about 150 million years. 150 to 200 million years is how long there were dinosaurs on the planet. The end of the dinosaurs 65 million years ago is referred to as the KT boundary. The KT boundary. Remember that each of these periods, the Precambrian, the Paleozoic, the Mesozoic, the Cenozoic, are broken up into smaller sections of their own. For example, the year is broken up into smaller sections called months. Months are broken up into smaller sections called weeks, and weeks are broken up into smaller sections called days. All right? So within one of these large eras, there are smaller sections. Within a month, there's a bunch of weeks. Within a week, there's a bunch of different days, broken up into smaller sections. The end of the dinosaurs is referred to as the KT boundary. K stands for the last period within the Mesozoic, and that's the Cretaceous. In English, we spell Cretaceous with a C, but the Germans spell it with a K, and they were the ones that discovered this KT boundary thing, so they're the ones who got to name it. K stands for Cretaceous. T stands for the Tertiary period, and the Tertiary is the first period of now, the first period of the Cenozoic. So the breaking point between the Mesozoic dinosaurs and the Cenozoic now is called the KT boundary. The KT boundary is a layer of iridium. It's referred to as the Iridium Layer. The Iridium Layer, depending on where you are on the planet, is somewhere between a centimeter to a meter thick section of rock that contains, it's not a meter, it's like 4 or 5 inches, is a section of rock that contains a rare element referred to as, or known as, iridium. Iridium is rare on Earth, but it's actually fairly common in asteroids. We find this layer of rock around the entire planet at the same level around the entire planet. Below the iridium layer, we see dinosaurs. Above the iridium layer, we don't see dinosaurs. The iridium layer is the breaking point. The iridium layer is the record of whatever event it was that killed off all the dinosaurs. And if all the dinosaurs died because of this iridium layer, where did this iridium layer come from? Where it came from was a really big rock. A really big rock about 6 miles wide. How big is 6 miles? Oh, it's not that big. 6 miles, I mean, I can drive that in like 5 minutes. Imagine walking 6 miles. A normal person walks at about 2 to 3 miles an hour. If you walk quickly at 3 miles an hour, how long is it going to take you to walk 6 miles? 2 hours. You're walking across a rock, the same rock, and it takes you 2 hours to walk the length of it. That's the size of the rock that hit the planet. It was big. This very big rock hit the planet. And when this very big rock hit the planet, it vaporized and threw up a gigantic cloud of dust. And this gigantic cloud of dust surrounded the planet and probably blocked out the sun for at least 2 years. It eventually all fell out, and when it fell out, it formed this thing called the Iridium Layer. This is the Mesozoic. The Mesozoic is broken up into 3 sections, the Triassic, the Jurassic, and the Cretaceous. Remember, we said that the KT boundary, K stands for Cretaceous. I know we spell it with a C, but we covered that. The first period of the Cenozoic, which is now, is called the Tertiary. KT boundary right here. It was about 65 million years ago. It was a really big rock that hit the planet. That's what finished off the dinosaurs. There probably weren't very many angiosperms. Flowering plants did not begin to diversify until the Cenozoic. The Cretaceous. Oh, let's talk about this. So, Triassic, Jurassic, Cretaceous. Jurassic, that sounds familiar. You mean like that movie, Jurassic World? Like that movie called Jurassic Park? What's in Jurassic Park? Dinosaurs. Who's the hero of Jurassic Park? No, it's not Chris Pratt. The hero of Jurassic Park in all of the Jurassic Park movies is always the same animal. It is the T-Rex. The T-Rex is the hero of Jurassic Park. The amusing thing is that the period that it is named for, the Jurassic period, there were no T-Rexes. T-Rex doesn't show up until the Cretaceous.